Hey everybody, I am DJ Riley, one of the hosts from Boys on the Bench, and I am back with my top 6 NBA picks for these Wednesday matchups. Now, if you were following along yesterday, you know that it didn't go the way that we expected. It finally ended our 3-day positive streak. We lost this one, and all 3 losses came from a single game. The Utah Jazz versus the New York Knicks. All 3 of those bets lost. Josh Hart ended up playing 42 minutes. The Knicks only played 8 players the entire game, and Josh Hart saw all but 6 minutes of the entire game. So that one lost for us. Lauri Markkanen didn't have a good game rebounding like he had in the previous 5 to 10 games. So that was just really, it was all just a bust. But the other 2 ended up cashing out for us. But we're looking to get started with this new bet. Also, make sure you're checking out my X profile. I've saw some good bets in the books that I saw, but PrizePicks has not released them up to this point with that I am dropping this video. So these are just picks that I like, but also make sure you're checking out our X profile because I will be dropping those picks the second that PrizePicks drops them. So again, make sure y'all are checking that out. And also in the description, make sure y'all are checking out Daily Grind Fantasy. They're a positive EV betting tool that will absolutely change the way that you bet. They also have a correlation tool that just makes betting night and day different for you. So again, make sure you're checking them out. You'll hear me reference them throughout the show. So let's go ahead and get into these top 6 picks for today. First on this list is Karl Anthony Towns going over 24.5 points. Now, bear with me because to start this, it doesn't sound too great because he has 3 prior matchups versus the Mavericks this season. And in those games, on January 7th, he only had 24 points, and then the other 2, he had 10 points and 21 points, giving him a head-to-head matchup of 0-3 for the entire year this year. And if we look at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, it's a 49.7% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 115. Looking at his recent performances, he's hit 3 out of his last 5 and then only 4 out of his last 10. So again, not great history, but where I have faith today in Karl Anthony Towns is that Dallas is going to be without 3 of their top players, their starters for this game. Luka's already been ruled out, Kyrie is ruled out, and then Derek Lively has also been ruled out, the center. So cast usage, we've seen it increase these past 5 games where he shot at least 15 field goal attempts in each of those games. So with the defense that has struggled so much versus the power forward and center position, I expect Karl Anthony Towns' usage to increase or stay the same at least and maybe even increase with those stars out, especially Derek Lively in the middle defending the rim. Then I really see Karl Anthony Towns really thriving. I feel like even his line is a little low here. I feel like the books and even PrizePicks have lowered it because of the recent history. And then also looking at how Dallas defends the power forward center position, they currently allow the 6th most points to those positions. So again, I think that Karl Anthony Towns is in a solid position to hit all of his opportunities, hit this mark of 25 points. But let's go ahead and move on to the next pick, and that's Bam Adebayo going under 24.5 points plus assist versus the Sacramento Kings team. They don't have any head-to-head history this season, and if we look at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, it's a 51.2% chance of hitting with an average line of minus 123. So again, that 51%, we would love to see it around the 54%, and there are some picks later on that I will be showing you that have that 54%, and you can see where it's bright green, telling you to hammer that. But Bam Adebayo, they're only giving us a 51% chance of hitting with an average line of minus 123. Looking at his recent performances of his last 5 and last 10, he's hit this under in 4 out of his last 5 and 6 out of his last 10. Now, of the last 12 centers that these Kings have faced, 10 out of those last 12 have hit their underlines, with only 1 of them having touched 20 points plus assist. So the Kings have been very dominant here in the past 2 to 3 weeks defending the center position. And then with Bam Adebayo's recent struggles in these last week to 2 weeks, I feel like, again, everything's kind of pointing towards the under here. Now, if we look at how Sacramento has done versus the centers all season long for points plus assist, they've allowed the 8th least. So they're a top 10 team at defending points plus assists to centers. So Bam Adebayo enters a highly unfavorable matchup. He hasn't hit this line very well recently, and Sacramento has done a very good job at defending the centers. But let's go ahead and move on to the next pick, and that's Paolo Banchero going over 1.5 3-pointers made versus versus the San Antonio Spurs team. They don't have any history throughout this season. And if we look at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, they're giving us a 48.9% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 109. So again, you're not really getting any positive EV value here from Daily Grind Fantasy. Now, if we look at recent performances and how he's done in his last 5 and last 10, he's hit 4 out of his last 5 and also 4 out of his last 10. But the 4 out of his last 5 is where it kind of sticks out to me, because that's when we saw his fellow teammate Franz Wagner come back from an injury, and he's been back for 5 games now. So in the 5 games that Wagner's been back, he's hit 4 out of those 5. We've also seen his 3-point attempts increase. So the 5 games prior to Wagner being there, we saw him shooting less than 4 3-point attempts per game. But now that he's back, we're seeing him shoot at least 6 3-point attempts per game. So again, really like that, especially versus the susceptible Spurs team, who's allowing and giving up a lot of 3-point attempts. They currently allow the 5th most 3-pointers made in all of the NBA, and then also the 4th highest 3-point percentage made to opposing teams. So again, San Antonio Spurs versus the power forward position, 3-pointers made, they allow the 12th most. So really like him in this matchup. Again, the last 5, he's hitting 80% of this line in his last 5, and then the Spurs are just so bad at defending the 3. So really, we're just asking for 2, and Paolo's done a really good job here recently. But let's move on to our next pick, and that's Daniel Gafford going over 8.5 rebounds plus assist versus this LA Clippers team. They don't have any head-to-head history this season, and if we look at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, it's a 50.9% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 122. Looking at recent performances, he's hit the over in 4 out of his last 5 and 8 out of his last 10, 80% for both of those marks over his last 10 games and last 5 games. And where I really like him coming into this matchup is Gafford has completely dominated the offensive boards, having at least 6+ attempts in his past 2 games. And the Clippers have been so bad at allowing offensive rebounds. And now they're also going to be without their top center in Zubac, who's already been ruled out for this game. So I think that Gafford's going to have a really good opportunity to continue building on his offensive rebounding dominance and really rebounding dominance that he showed here in the past 5 games and 10 games, hitting at least 80% of that mark. So again, really love that pick here, but let's move on to the next one, and that's Paul George going over 27.5 points plus rebounds plus assists versus this Washington Wizards team. They don't have any head-to-head history this season, but where I really like this is such a good play brought to us by Daily Grind Fantasy, giving this a 54.8% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 143. Now, where I feel like this line has been reduced so much by PrizePicks, but increased so much by other sports books, is if we look at his recent performances, he has not hit this line at all in each of his last 5 games. He is 0-5 at hitting the over in his last 5. Last 10, he's only hit the over 4 out of his last 10. But then if we go all the way back to his last 30, he's hit the over in 19 out of his last 30. So needless to say, he's definitely been on a little bit of a cold streak, and we've seen his usage take a dip these past several games, where we've seen him take 12 or less field goal attempts in 3 out of his last 4 games, and then he's played less than 30 minutes in all 4 of those games, so making it 4 straight. So I do look for him to get back on track with this Washington Wizards team, who currently rank dead last in total points allowed, total rebounds allowed, and total assists allowed. And that even goes all the way to the small forward position, where they allow the most points, rebounds, and assists to that position as well. So again, I think the books are heavily favoring lowering that line, and PrizePicks has lowered it even more than what the books are offering. So definitely jump on that while you can before PrizePicks does and bumps it back up to the 28.5 like other books are doing. Now, moving on to the last pick for today, and that's Wendell Carter Jr. going over 10.5 points versus the Spurs team again. They don't have any head-to-head history this season, and if we look at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us here, they're giving us a 54.5% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 139. So again, another solid play here by Daily Grind Fantasy. Looking at his recent performances, though, of his last 5 and last 10, he has hit this over in 2 out of his last 5 and then 5 out of his last 10. Now, where I really like this matchup is the Spurs have struggled so much versus centers, and they've allowed 6 out of the last 7 centers to score at least 13 plus against them. Also, in the month of January, you can see that they've allowed 8 out of the last 13 centers with point lines who are at least double digits to hit the over. So Carter's still trying to find his role on this team, but we've seen him be very dominant at times, and I expect him to find that dominance again today versus the Spurs team, who has had recent struggles versus centers, but really they've struggled versus centers all season long, allowing the third most points to that position. So anyways, everybody, these are my top 6 picks for these NBA games at this time. But also, like I said, there are some other picks that I found in the books that I really like a lot. So make sure you're checking out that X profile, because as soon as PrizePicks drops them, I will drop them as well. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. All of that stuff helps this channel grow. And again, thank y'all so much to the subscribers, everybody, the listeners from the very beginning. And I know I've had a lot come recently. So again, thank y'all so much and best of luck to y'all. Let's make some money today. See y'all next time.